I'm in Wadebridge in North Cornwall, and I've come today to see the parish church. Now this is situated in what used to be a separate village called Egloshayle. This church dates back to the 12th century at least, so we're going to have an explore of the graveyard and inside the church. Very nicely kept, very neat graveyard. Stones are almost all upright. Just inside the gate on the right hand side is this beautifully clear memorial. This is Mary, the daughter of James and Jane Derry of Ford in this parish, 1855. And it says there, age 16 years. And also a remember of Rebecca, the daughter of the above, who died aged 9 years. And at the bottom we have John, who was aged, I think that says 2 years, it may be 5 years. So they're the three children of James and Anne Derry. Let's move along. Another very clear one nearby, and there is John Derry. And one next to that looks like Mary Derry, 1826. And looking like a very old one next to that, but I'm having trouble making out the information on that one. We move along to Thomas Knight Kendall, 1849, aged 27 years. Now these stones are very clear to read. It does vary an awful lot between churchyards depending on the type of stone. This is Nicholas Dyer. And George Menhinnick, 1840, age 77. And this is another George Menhinnick, daughter of Richard and Elizabeth, died in 1825. Now there's a little bit of traffic noise, you may have noticed. Hopefully it's not affecting the information too much. Design of stones is very much a rectangular piece of stone. There's not a lot of memorials with decoration in the shape of the stone. This one is Richard Geach, 1780. Now that's a very old stone to see with such a clear inscription. I notice on the side of the main porch are some stones mounted on the wall. This one is George, the son of Thomas and Anne Teague, 1843. Next to that is William, the son of Richard and Jane Nankerville, 1761. And underneath that, the above mentioned Richard Nankerville, 1780. And beautifully preserved. We've got this image at the top. Lieth the body of Dorcas, ye daughter of Edward and Martha Cutlip of this parish, who died May the 31st, 1761, aged 29. And up on the right there is one that's much more difficult to make out. 1803. On the left hand side of the main path we've got several table tombs, two more there, two more further back. Have a look at this one under the tree, and this reads Anne or Anna, the relict of the late Joseph Lorry, who died in 1841. We'll move up this way to see these two. This one's starting to lean a little bit. And if we can get an inscription from it. Brown, William Brown, and he departed 1856. One next to it has got a coating of ivy, and in fact it looks as though the stone is leaning quite badly and possibly cracked. And the one next to it, there's even some flowers in front of this one, and yet we're talking of a stone that's 200 years old. Well, this is a very lovely churchyard. Rather too much traffic passing by on the road outside, but this is Elizabeth Blake, the wife of John Blake, 1821. One there which is looking very old and very worn. But as these memorials go, these are remarkably well kept and very easy to read, considering they've stood for 200 years. 1854 for John, I'm not making that out, maybe the camera will pick it out better than my eyes will. Alexander Anderton, 1768. And there's some over the back there where they've cleared them and lent them against the boundary wall. We'll just have a look at a couple of these. Now this one has got a shape to it rather than being the square slab which is the predominant form here. There's another Derry there, obviously very much a local name. Charles Derry. That looks like Gummow, G-U-M-M-O-W, Charles Gibbs Gummow. Unusual name. We'll work our way up the side of the church. There's another table tomb here, a horizontal tomb. At the bottom we can see the name Priscilla Jewell, 1865. Let's make our way up this way. William Henry Craddock, 1846. Now I've just been told by a lady who involved with this church that there is another and possibly older graveyard just up the road, which I'm going to have to include on this video. Belongs to this church. There's some large table tombs at the back there, completely covered with ivy. and some brambles that need cutting back. And more of them here. Mystery as to who is remembered in these two. This one to John Williams of this parish, 1848. There's quite a number around behind the back of the church now. You can see the brickwork of two table tombs there, and a number of other memorial stones. It's amazing looking at the church that you think it stood here for 700 years. Of course, it's had work done on it in the meantime. But up this path, and up the path we've just walked, thousands, tens of thousands of people have walked over the century. 30 generations at least have walked up the path to the church for baptisms, for marriages and for burials. What history. I'll just wander down here and let you enjoy the view. Frances Nankerville, the wife of James Nankerville, a surgeon of Wadebridge, who died in 1818, and then James himself, who died 4 years later. Well, the church is open, but I believe there are people in there, so we may just have to let the camera do the talking. The church is still fitted with the pews. This is the stone pulpit, believed to date from the 15th century. At the back of the church is a war memorial to those that gave their lives in the First World War. I hope you can see that. I'm having to light it up with my torch. There are some 42 names on there of men from this area who gave their lives in the Great War. Right high on the wall is Mary Lady Molesworth, and again you may be able to get that inscription, 1877. This elaborate memorial with the bust of the lady at the top and the two children each side is in memory of John Molesworth. And again, I'll leave you to read that on the screen. And one close to the altar, Henry Carey Shuttleworth, rector of Cole Abbey in London, and a few other bits about him. He died in 1900. And this one to James Bruce Carstairs, the last surviving member of the family of Sir James Bruce of Kinross, that's in Scotland, and he died 1845. Well, I'm back outside now, These churches are always so dark. I brought a powerful torch with me today, and I hope that made reading some of the inscriptions a little easier. I'm going to leave the main church and churchyard and walk on down a couple of 100 yards down the road where I'm told the older graveyard is, and we'll have a look at that. So here's the final shots of this church. Wonderful, beautifully kept. Well, here is the entrance to the older graveyard. I must admit, if I hadn't been told about it, I really wouldn't have noticed this gateway and the footpath up between the houses. Having said that, the path is quite well worn, so I suspect the locals know it very well. Through another set of gates, and oh my, look at this. A wonderful old type graveyard stretching way up the hill. Now this will take some exploring. Let me just start with the first one. It's easy to read. George J. Edwards, 1919, and his wife Mary, and their son aged 29, George. I notice down there is a small memorial, presumably a recent burial, or at least in memory of a recent burial. No, it's a 2-year-old child, and that is why the stone is a small stone. But the flowers on there tell us that the child is still remembered some 60 plus years after they came and left us. Let's wander up through the graveyard. Oh, this is amazing. There's no signpost to it. You wouldn't know this was here, tucked away up this footpath, unless you have the local knowledge. Going across to the main track, you can see on the left all the stones in the trees there, very dark. A couple nearer the path which we can read more readily. Humphrey Davy, who died at Trevelling, 1880, aged 37. And then his wife, and then Jane Parsons, 1892. Look at the clarity of this one. Died 1898, Joseph Warne. And the fancy lettering and decoration. Now this is quite different from the churchyard where they're very square pieces of stone in the main. These have more elaborate outlines. Look at the decoration on that one. James Garneth, 1889. That's rather nice. Late of Flora Place in Wadebridge. Henry Hoskin. I'm working my way up. I see over the back there, there's one with the iron railings around it. And it's a table style tomb. So it'll be probably difficult to get an inscription from it. But that is very elaborate. The decoration on the end of the stone itself. If I can reach over here, or maybe you can make out the name but it's difficult for me to see that at the moment. So let's move across to this side. This one is very clear. This is for William Russell, a Crimean veteran. He gained 5 medals and badge, 1895, aged 80. Next to him is Aaron Simmons, 1878. And then Thomas Chappell, 1860. So it continues on up the hill. It's reasonably well kept for an old cemetery. It's very difficult to maintain these, but most of the grass has been cut back. Just about everything is accessible. Now this one with the cross on top, John Lander, 1871, aged 28. We go around this yew tree. Yew trees are very common in graveyards. They live for many hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. They were put there originally, I'm told, to combat the smell that could arise from some graves. No longer the case, of course. They bury them a bit deeper now. Mary Hicks Hill, aged 79. Pair of stones behind that. Francis Hill. And then Elizabeth Ann, the wife of Charles Collins. Some nice memorials there. There's a pair here made out of one piece of stone. A very large plot here with 3 big ones on it, big crosses on it, and a flat one behind. That one there says it's William Martin. So presumably this is the Martin family and their relatives. We'll work our way up. This one's an unusual design. Again, it's Martin with a YN on the end. John and Mary Martin, 1906. Back amongst the undergrowth there are some more stones. What I haven't seen in either graveyard so far are any war graves, which is quite unusual in English cemeteries. Perhaps they've been all put together in one particular place. Now it's coming out on a busier road here, so I'll swing across to the other side of the path. So many stones. Now you may have gathered today is a day of what many people call mizzle. It's a mist and drizzle. So we got mizzle weather, which means the ground is very wet. Let's have a look at this one. Fred, dearly beloved husband of Doris of Alden and daddy of darling little Dorothy, who died at the military hospital in Frensham Hill, Surrey, 1918, and was interred there aged 28. So there is a war grave, not the normal CWGC memorial, but there is a family memorial to someone who gave their life in the First World War. Move along. This deserves a visit on a warm, sunny day when you could really get amongst the graves. But if you're down in Wadebridge in North Cornwall, you should really look this cemetery out. Now there's a gateway up here which is an extension to this already sizable graveyard. So let's head through there. Oh goodness me, more and more recent ones, because the stones are of a lesser height. If I just pan round, you'll see that this is the current cemetery for the Wadebridge area. And on a clear day you would have panoramic views across to the hills beyond. But it's not quite so easy with the mizzle. Again, on my left hand side you've got a busy road just behind the hedge. You may be able to glimpse the car headlamps in the distance. So if there's background noise, I apologise. Well, I'm looking back at some of the newer section now, and you'll see all the flowers which tell you these are the more recent graves. Immediately in front of me is a child's grave, Colby George Cotterill Orchard. Sadly 21 months. If we walk down the row you can see the newer inscriptions. It's 1999, 2008. And maybe just in the distance on the skyline you can see the tower of the church, St Petroc's, that we did at the beginning of the video. Let's wander back this way. Right the way through here to a very recent grave, just been filled in. Ian Vivian Gammon, known as Gov. David Silver and Anthea Silver. And then I'm coming round, I'll sweep round and you can see joins in with a brand new cemetery with some nice paths laid out. And over here more newer stones. This is the Wadebridge Cemetery. Again, many of the graves have got flowers on, recent graves. Unusual stone there, simple but very effective. Brian William Port Cunliffe. Just a bit of polished slate. One there with images of the people. Another one with a simple square slab of slate, and it does stand out rather nicely. Irene May Williams, Karen Irene Williams and Peter Barry Williams. Now this one has got the Burma star on the top, so he clearly served in that campaign. John, known as Jack Pinch. You can see the graveyard stretching away up the hill there until you go through the gateway into the older cemetery. This one to Kevin Blemmings, beloved husband to Tracy, devoted dad, Bamp's brother and friend, proud veteran, Cornishman and spoofing legend. One here to Ivor Ernest Edmonds, sportsman, and an image of him on his racing cycle. Come down to the very recent ones now. These are 2022. Another one there for 2022, and some you can see on the ground they've just had the turf put back after the burial, and a stone will be erected in due course. Well, there we are. That's the visit to the parish church and then the Wadebridge cemetery in North Cornwall. Hope you've enjoyed it. We've done our best despite the mizzle and the very wet ground. But yeah, it's a lovely place. It certainly should be on your list to visit if you're in the area. The church is actually in the village, used to be a village of Egloshayle, which is now part of Wadebridge. So make the trip and come and have a look at this. You'll enjoy it. Till the next time.